That brings us to today's For What It's Worth segment. I'm focused on the volume this week in the $7 trillion ETF industry. I mean, this is enormous, John. We are seeing this huge input in ETF volume. We're looking at a GTV chart here. ETF volume is surging as we see this sell-off. So I have a lot of questions about exactly who's driving some of these flows and what's going on. To break it all down, joining us now is Athanasios Psarofagis, ETF analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining me here on set. Thank you so much for joining me. You just saw that ETF volume chart. It's surging as we look at this broad sell-off. It's not uncommon to see that ETF volume surge when you have these sell-offs. Was the ETFs or levered ETFs actually driving the trade?
So I think it's the other way around, actually. So I think when markets get really volatile or people are looking to express some sort of decision, they're going to the ETF. That's why I think it's that way we have to look at it. And so I actually thought yesterday would be a record in trading. It was a good day, but it wasn't as big as we saw in January. So if you actually put it in context with historical periods that we've seen, yesterday was a very heavy trading day, but it wasn't one of the heaviest that we've seen. And ETFs, you've got to remember, they're around during the financial crisis, they're around during COVID, so they've gone through a lot of different events. I don't see this selling tied specifically to ETFs. If anything, I think the ETFs still serve their purpose. You want to change risk exposures really quickly, or you want to take a bet on something. That's why I think the volumes spike. It's because people like the liquidity of the ETF, and that's where they're turning.
But what I find so interesting about those charts, particularly for that crowd of tech investors, is it almost feels like there's a bull and bear debate right in front of your eyes. The idea that those who loved tech stocks before might be equally interested right now after the big decline. And then the bearish argument might be, it's hard to break up with a trade that people had liked so much, and maybe people aren't looking towards a different dynamic in the markets going forward.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think you're right, and I've seen the flows be almost more binary, splitting more than we've seen in the past. And I think when you look at something like ARK or some of these other ones, a lot of people had come in late to this trade. So if you're looking at it from an investor perspective and you're holding this fund and you're still down on the position, which a lot of people are, they might not want to sell it. But at the same time, you look at the ARK chart and some of these other tech names have been down so much, it could be an interesting time to step in. I think a lot of investors are saying, well, this seems like a pretty good entry point. I think we've seen that this week. We've seen some flows pile into the levered tech ETFs, into the ARK ones. And to me, that seems more like a buying the dip feel than it is people shorting the ETF or anything like that. So it definitely seems like at these levels, there are some people stepping in.